I love Dragon's Dogma, and before I go anywhere with that, I've gotta get something off my chest. The only reason I ever found out about Dragon's Dogma and played it at all in the first place was because it came with a demo for Resident Evil 6. So I pre-ordered it back in the day solely to get my hands on that demo. It was just a bonus that I ended up loving Dragon's Dogma. Also, because I'm sure at least one person will bring it up, Resident Evil 6 isn't that bad. Whew, okay, I already feel a weight off my chest. As I was saying, Dragon's Dogma is great, and apparently it was also maybe super underappreciated when it first came out. I don't think that's the case as much nowadays, but just for the folks not familiar with the game, here's a very broad strokes TLDR. Dragon's Dogma is an open world action RPG from 2012 where a big old dragon steals your heart, and then you gotta get it back. I thought since we're finally getting a sequel in March, unless it gets delayed, knock on wood, this is obviously the best time to cash in on that sweet hype and make a video. I actually started working on this run before there was a release date for Dragon's Dogma 2. The timing worked out pretty nicely though. Okay, so a main mechanic in Dragon's Dogma are the pawns, which are essentially player-made NPC companions. You make one at the start of the game and can recruit up to 2 more made by other players, giving you a 4-man party including yourself. Pawns tie pretty heavily into just about every facet of gameplay in Dragon's Dogma, so naturally, I've always been curious about how hard the game would be if I didn't take any pawns with me at all. So that's what we're doing. We're gonna try and beat Dragon's Dogma without any pawns. But before we get started, the 2023 holiday season might be over, but the excitement never ends in Raid Shadow Legends, who are sponsoring today's video. Raid Shadow Legends is one of the best games you can play on your mobile device, and it has a little something for everyone. Whether you like crushing your enemies in PvE or crushing on your heroes in the champion index. Ooh. Speaking of heroes, the folks at Raid are giving away the super strong legendary hero Sun Wukong the Monkey King free for a limited time. He's an absolute force to be reckoned with, as he can steal buffs from enemies, ignore 50% of his target's defense with his Staff of Wonder, block buffs from going on his targets, and his passive ability can fully revive him. New players can get Sun Wukong for free by using the promo code Monkey King. And yes, it's January, but Raid's Christmas story holiday themed event is still going on right now, where you can follow Sir Nicholas through a festive story complete with minigames to solve and the chance to win in-game and real-life prizes. Head to www.raidxmas.com to check that out. Alongside that, there's also all sorts of themed events, tournaments, and other surprises going on with the Yuletide Titan event, where you can earn even more in-game rewards. If you're a new player and click my link in the description or scan the QR code right here, you can get 2 heroes, the Epic Champion Lightsworn, and then once you hit level 15, the Epic Boss Killer Juliana. And don't forget about the promo code Monkey King to get Sun Wukong for free. So check that link in the description, find me in-game under the name Anxietony, join my clan Anxiety After Dark, and we can become a little Raid family. Thanks again to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. To make sure we're getting the full challenge experience here, we're going to be doing it on hard mode, which, as the name suggests, is harder than the easy and normal modes. And it comes with a nice little achievement I've somehow never gone for. Speaking of things I've never gone for, I've almost always completely ignored the DLC in Dragon's Dogma, and it offers some of the hardest content in the game. I've beaten the boss of it, Damon, exactly 1 time, without realizing I was supposed to go back and fight him again. So we'll be doing that as well, because Phase 2 is supposed to be pretty tough and also has an achievement. And while we're at it, we may as well kill Death for an achievement too. However, I won't be touching the Dragon, or is it pronounced Dragon? Mostly because I've done it before, and also because I find that fight kind of a drag. First things first, there's a prologue that has 0 bearing on the rest of the run. Regardless, I disposed of the pawns.
Retreat holds only death, Arisen. We must cleave a path onward.
Then I got mauled by a Chimera to get to the actual game. We gotta put up a valiant fight. Damn. And by actual game, I mean the character creator. So admittedly, I'm not great at character creators, but I took my best shot at making Mr. X from Resident Evil 2. I feel like I at least got the texture of his weird testicle-like face right. Now we need to get some story stuff out of the way. Like I mentioned in the TLDR, a dragon shows up and wrecks our shit by fingering our heart out. But it's cool, this happens every now and then, and now we're known as the Arisen. And all we gotta do is get our heart back from the dragon. No big deal. Before we do that, we've got 3 vocations to choose from, with more unlocked a little later, and we're able to switch vocations whenever. Right now there's Fighter, Strider, and Mage. I chose Strider because being a coward with a bow is ingrained in my DNA. Also, I should mention that no way am I suggesting what I'm doing throughout this run is the best way to do any of this. I'm just doing what I know, and trying to have a good time while doing it. Like, for example, I know a lot of people like to head to the DLC Bitter Black Isle immediately to run around and try to gear up for an early game boost, which is especially smart on hard mode when every enemy tries to give you a prostate massage. I don't do that, meaning the gear up part. The prostate massage, I could probably be convinced. And I don't really have a good reason for not going there beyond I just don't like to. Anyways, the start of the game is mostly tutorial shenanigans and doesn't really have a whole lot that we need to talk about, so I'll just touch on the broad strokes of this whole bit. First, Apon is forced upon us as a guide, but nobody can swim in Dragon's Dogma, so he's gone as soon as we get him.
Take care at the water's edge, Master. Take care you aren't soaked in water!
Then we're faced with the Cyclops a little later outside of town. And this is actually a pretty good representation of how most of my early game fights went, until I learned medieval war crimes, which I'll elaborate on in a little bit. After we kill the Clops, we have one last pawn shenanigan until the very end of the game. All we gotta do is design our custom pawn, who I modeled after my Twitch chat. They didn't quite make it all the way into the drink when I went to get rid of them. Regardless, no more pawn stuff for a long time.
Out of use. My consciousness fades.
Now we're blessed with a lore-accurate fight of Mr. X versus Jan. Wesker would probably love this. Luckily, we don't actually have to kill this thing. We just gotta take one of its heads off without getting bored. The last thing we have to do is escort the snake's head to Gransys, the capital city. Also, the only city, unless you count the fishing village we're from. The path is littered with goblins and harpies. This part can be a little bit of a slog because the cart with the head is really, really slow. But otherwise, there's no issues here. We're home free once we're out of the mountain pass. That's the intro stuff out of the way. Well, I guess there's also outrunning the hentai monster into the city, but whatever. Okay, so now that we're in Gransys, we have access to all the hybrid classes and stuff, and this was going to be the part where I went over all of that, but instead we're going to talk about the medieval war crimes that kind of invalidated the strategy I had in my head going into this run. So I'm usually bad for never using my items in games. So I had no idea what the majority of stuff does in Dragon's Dogma. And this is around the time when my chat suggested I take a look at Throw Blast. And as the name suggests, it's essentially a grenade. A very strong grenade. I mean, you'd imagine grenades are strong, but sometimes video game grenades are underwhelming. This is not one of those, to the point where it made a lot of stuff in this run really trivial. In my head, it felt like the equivalent of the US carpet bombing an uncontacted tribe or something. I mean, one of the very first merchants in the game sells these infinitely. And since money's not really a problem with enemies dropping more gold because hard mode, there was rarely a time where I had less than like 50 of these things on me. Beyond that, this is our boy Fornival, who essentially deals medieval PEDs to anyone with cash. Periaps give buffs to strength, defense, magic, yada yada, whichever one you buy, and they stack up to 4 times each, which it's a lot. The flip side is they only last for 1 minute, which to be fair is about 59 seconds longer than a lot of us need. And really, that pretty much covers everything you need to know. Now we've got to get an audience with the Duke, and to do that we've got to do a bunch of quests that aren't really worth going over, because when in doubt, throw blast. So I guess story-wise, during these missions we're introduced to a cult that essentially just wants the dragon to end the world and stuff. Surely the cult leader will pose a problem to us later, and not get stepped on. We get to meet with the Duke eventually, and this little shit puts a jester hat on us to embarrass us in front of everyone.
I fear your crown outshines my own.
But we get the last laugh because you can straight up cuck the Duke. No, seriously, you talk to his wife once, she takes your jester hat, and then invites you to her room. And if you go visit her, the Duke storms in and will literally actually for real choke her the fuck out and kill her, unless you intervene. Also, the quest around that is just called Arousing Suspicion. Quest failed? Moving on, we get to fight a griffin, and that's pretty fun. It's also a good showcase for why I choose Strider and Assassin. They can absolutely mince monsters when you get a hold of them. Also, I think there was a demo of this specific fight back in the day, which really has me hoping we get something similar for Dragon's Dogma 2. All right, out of curiosity. Oh my, wait, holy shit, how much damage did that do? Bro, what? That's fucking gross. That is way too strong. I had no idea. There's also a quest where you have to stop a rebellion led by some French dude. I think that's a French accent anyways.
Salvation? You place me in ill company. I'm a man of this world. Fantasies of death and redemption concern me not one whit.
And you can either slap the shit out of him or leave it up to fate and let your friend do it. She doesn't do so well, or at least she didn't for me. I'm told she can actually win this fight, but I've never seen it happen myself. We're also sent after an evil dude named Salamet, who's supposed to be a big strong wizard man that stole a ring from the Duke. 2 arrows pretty much do the trick here, then we just gotta let him monologue himself off an edge.
Yes, I will see my dream.
I'm pretty sure he's
made
almost
reality.
dead. There we go, just took, he needed to stop talking. Also, if you notice that my footage all of a sudden looks period accurate for a Xbox 360 game, that's because my recording settings reset on me from an update, and I didn't notice until I started editing this video. Eventually, we get a quest where the cult from earlier attacks a Way Castle, and we gotta go take them all out. There's a couple of Cyclops, a Chimera, then some Wights. The Wights are probably the worst thing here to fight, mostly because they float around and hitting them with the Throw Blast is a little tougher. Oh, there it is. I missed. Once we deal with all of that, the dragon shows up and absolutely demolishes the cult leader, then dishes out a pretty good line.
If you would face me, seek me out, and I shall allow it. But heed the zealot's lesson well. When the weak court death, they find it.
But yeah, this is him giving us permission to throw hands with him down in his lair, which is actually just going through the entire prologue area from the very start of the game again. But instead of a normal Chimera at the end of it, there's a Gore Chimera, which is just a harder variant. And now it's dragon time. But first, we gotta talk about the romance system. Mostly because I need to explain why a child showed up as my character's person that the dragon kidnapped. Oh god, who's our loved one?
But then, tell me,
Oh no!
child of
Oh,
man,
it's literally the
what does
child!
it mean to live?
No!
To wage war
Dude, Mr. X
against
plays
the
Smash
passing of
or
day.
Minecraft. Long story short, if you give gifts, do quests for, or chat up some of the NPCs, the dragon takes them at this point and makes you choose between fighting him to the death or sacrificing that person so that he'll bugger off for however long and make you look like a hero. Way earlier in the game, I did a side quest where you meet this little forest witch girl, Celine, and I guess that was enough to make her our person. I mean, I guess the Duke took the only other girl we talked to in this entire run out of play. Also, I swear to God, she's like hundreds of years old, bro, but I don't know if that's gonna hold up when the police come knocking on Mr. X's door. So we have a little pause here while we choose between fighting him or sacrificing our person. And you see there's this item called the Maker's Finger, which is essentially the BFG of Dragon's Dogma. And it one-hits a lot of enemies in the game, but usually for special bosses and stuff, it only does 1 full health bar of damage. While if you use it while he's waiting for your answer, it straight up ends the game.
Your choice.
Oh, it worked! Wait, that's it? No epic Oh. Okay, well, the main game isn't actually over yet. There's a little bit more to do there, but if we do any of that, that will actually end the game. And we want to do the DLC stuff first, so it's Bitter Black Isle time. Our only goals here are to clear 2.5 bosses. The half is because we have to fight Damon, the final boss here, twice. Once for his normal fight, and once again to get his phase 2, so that's like 1.5. And then we gotta go after death. This means we have to go through Bitter Black Isle twice. And that's not really that bad, because after the first time, you've pretty much seen everything and can run right through. This place is absolutely loaded with all sorts of monsters, so we had to evolve our tactics to more advanced war crimes. Blast arrows, which are literally just throw blasts we can shoot. And since we're an assassin, we can shoot 5 of these at once with one of our abilities, which ends up being some pretty gnarly DPS, especially when we're juicing on Fornival's good stuff. Yeah, honestly, it was pretty smooth sailing for the most part. Please do it without buffs. Please do it without buffs. There we go. Oh shit! It's literally death. What's he doing? Oh my god! Okay, hold up. That's not okay. God damn, dude. Okay, shit. With all these boss fights going on, I was leveling like a madman, which turned out to be pretty helpful because here's Damon, the Clapper of Cheeks. All right. Drugs.
He was my
never mind.
master, though it was 100 lifetimes past. Okay. He's strong. Nah, for real though, he isn't that bad. He's pretty fun. It took me a few tries to figure out his moveset, then I hit him with the old explosive and drug wombo combo, which did the trick. All right. Chat, now's the moment. Please. Fucking get lit up. Now I just have to do it again. I was actually slightly intimidated on my way back to Damon because things do get a bit harder on the second time through, like the room right before Damon being littered with dragons. But that didn't last too long because they sort of just flew through the roof. And they're gone. Phase 2 picks up right after we beat him normally, and it triggers some weird body horror vibe in me. I don't know, I just really don't like the talking dragon chest.
Slave to a broken order. Dare you look upon the truth?
And he doesn't really like the whole bomb arrow thing, so I guess that makes us even.
we go. There was a split second where I looked over at OBS and I didn't think it was recording and I almost threw up. All right, one more boss to go, and this was easily the most frustrating part of this run. Like, it's not hard, because if there's anything I've shown, it's that explosives are greater than any form of magic, and death is no exception. The problem is goading death out in the first place. I spent maybe 4 hours trying to get this guy to appear, because he only shows up in specific places, and only sometimes. Like, I don't want to get into the mechanics behind it because A, I probably had some fundamental misunderstanding of how to attract him properly, and B, I finally blew his ass up after like 4 or 5 times of getting him to finally visit me. Eat shit. Eat shit. There we go. And that's all there really is for Bitter Black Island. Yay, achievements. Back to the main game. Does he drop any loot? Oh yeah, there's some loot down there. With the dragon dead, everything kind of goes to shit because it actually wasn't the end of the game. Whoa.
Some need of me?
No, get out of my house. That's not right. What it did do was wreck a bunch of shit for the people who made bargains with him over the years, namely the Duke, who is now on par with our testicliness. Duel the Duke. Can I grab him?
Had you men come, I would yet
What are you gonna do, you fucking nerd? A giant hole opens up in the middle of the city as well, and this is called the Everfall. It's comprised of a bunch of different chambers, and they are riddled with enemies. But after the absolute XP juicing we had in Bitter Black Isle, nothing here is really worth our time. What we do have to do is gather a bunch of wake stones to open up a portal to God. I will not elaborate. Do we go in naked, chat? I feel like we gotta go in naked. God is actually called the Seneschal here, and he's a giant pushover. A pushover that blew my ass out so hard it turned me into a dragon. Get him, chat! Oh god, no!
Be victorious. Temper your soul in its heat. The forge of my heart grows cold.
Chat fucking leveled up from that. Oh! I did not expect that to happen. Good ending. We become a scaly. Whether we like it or not, our pawn gets pulled into this fight. But I was of the mindset, I'm doing a challenge run, so I'll let him eat shit. And it turns out you need your pawn to beat this fight. Unless there's some way I'm just unaware of, let me know. Once you get the Seneschal down to 0 health, you need your pawn to full Nelson him so you can deliver the final blow. So I guess that just negates the whole idea of this run, huh?
The cycle continues. Forever. And ever.
Without getting into the intricacies of the Dragon's Dogma lore here, we become the next Seneschal and immediately start fucking with townspeople. Oh no! Oh my god. Is he actually dead? That's crazy. But actually, we have to self-death ourselves to finish the game. Kind of anticlimactic for a challenge run. And that's Dragon's Dogma on its hardest difficulty, plus wiping Damon in death without any pawns. Yeah, so honestly, the hardest part was probably the beginning of the game before the whole Oppenheimer moment. And after discovering how broken some of the items are, I absolutely could have stopped using them to maintain some level of difficulty in this run. But also, I just sort of became super curious how far I could push things with bombs and drugs. And now we know. As always, if you want to catch these runs live, you can watch me over at twitch.tv/anxiety. Thanks for watching, and thanks again to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video.